So now welcome back to my channel. I have here with me Latte, who I'm sure will be really helpful. Probably not. So I thought I'd do a most interesting academic books video, because why not? These are just books that I found really informative and were easy to read, fairly easy to read. Thank you, Latte. Have you ever heard of Fakhreddin? I had neither, until I read Renaissance Emir by T.J. Gorton. Basically, Fakhreddin was a Druze prince who fled his mountain home and found refuge at the court of Medici. So, yeah, he even tried to convince popes and potentates and everything to join him in a crusade to oust the Ottomans from the Levant, which is where his home was. So, yeah, I didn't know that there was a sort of Muslim, hanging out in Florence, but now I do. It was super easy to read, super informative as well, lots of references at the back if you're really interested, but yeah, 4 out of 5. Right, and on to the next one. So, the title's a little bit unwieldy, but yeah, it's called Educating Muslim Women, The West African Legacy of Nana Asma'u, 1793 to 1864. It's by Jean Boyd and Beverly Mack, and it's another history book, obviously. Nana Asma'u, I'm just going to call her Nana from now on, because I'm pretty sure I'm massacring her name. Nana was a devout, learned Muslim woman, and she, if I remember correctly, she lived in seclusion, but she revolutionized women's education in West Africa, in what is now Nigeria, and actually beyond. So I cannot actually recommend this highly enough, so go read it. Next up I have Geisha by Liza Dalby. It's based on her anthropological observations as an apprentice geisha during the 1970s. So it is based off her PhD, so it can be a little dry in places, but it's really readable, otherwise it wouldn't have been published. So if you've ever wanted to know anything about geisha, this is the place to go. It's not like an encyclopedia about like every geisha in every Hanamachi or anything. It doesn't claim to be. It's a snapshot in time and place, and yeah, it's a fantastic read if you are interested in geisha. And again, 4 out of 5 stars. What Happened to the Girls of Casa della Pieta? That is what Nicholas Terpstra wanted to know, so he wrote a book called Lost Girls, Sex and Death in Renaissance Florence. So, Casa della Pieta was a home that was started by idealistic laywomen to help the homeless and orphaned girls of a particular area in Florence. And so, you know, they took in a lot of sick girls, girls who had nowhere to go. So that's where our story starts. But over the course of the 14 years that it ran, out of the 526 girls, only 202 survived and left Casa della Pieta alive. So if you want an answer, this book won't give it to you, so I'm warning you now. It's more of a discussion about possibilities. There's no black and white answer. There's no definite reason that you can put your finger on and say this is why so many of these girls didn't make it out of those walls. And it's a combination of things, and it's a really interesting discussion, and it talks about the politics of the time, the place of and role of women. Also talks about the power of the church and the laity and all sorts of things like that. It's fantastic, as long as you don't want an answer. So, yeah, again, I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. So, up next, you may sense a theme happening here. I've got Crossing the Kingdom, Portraits of Saudi Arabia by Loring M. Danforth. It's published by University of California. So Loring takes a bunch of students from his university on a anthropological trip to Saudi Arabia, and this is the resulting book. It's like an anthropological travel memoir thing. He talks to a woman who was punished and jailed for protesting the ban on women driving. He talks to an artist who makes things out of gears and whatnot. He talks to a Sufi scholar who promotes harmony among Christians and Muslims. And so it's just, as it says in the title, they're little portraits of different aspects of Saudi Arabian society. There's a bit of archaeology. It also talks about who can go to Mecca and issues surrounding religion. In the beginning, there's a lot of talk about Aramco, which is like the oil company that was started by Americans, which I think the Saudi Arabians took over eventually. But there's like this little enclave of foreigners in the middle of the Saudi Arabian desert, basically. But it's fascinating. So, again, 4 out of 5 stars. Next up I have Fighting Islam, Women, Faith and Sexism by Susan Carland. It's published by the University of Melbourne, and it's, I think it was a doctoral thesis, so it can be a bit academic-y, dry in places, but it's pretty good. So basically, Susan Carland, when she was a teenager, converted to Islam, and she's always found it, you know, to be a source of empowerment and comfort and all that sort of stuff. And there's been a lot of discussion in recent years about the oppression of women in Islam, and so she wrote this thesis, and she talked to like a diverse group of Muslim women who are fighting sexism from inside their communities. And yeah, they're from all over the places. Really fantastic. So it talks about different ways that different women are combating it, and there are discussions about whether it is actually part of Islam or if it's actually more to do with the culture that these women find themselves in. So yeah, it's a good read if you're interested in Islamic studies or feminism, all that sort of stuff. And again, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Because I'm super surprising at the moment, aren't I? And finally, we have Rewriting Medieval Japanese Women, Politics, Personality, and Literary Production in the Life of Nun Abutsu. Wow. That was a bit of a tongue twister. It's by Christina Laffin and published by University of Hawaii Press. So basically it's about an awesome literary lady who crossed gender and genre boundaries. She wrote the first female poetry treatise and the first poetic travelogue written by a female in the Kamakura era, which is, I have to check this, 1185, I think, to 1336, so 12th to 14th century. Basically she rose up from sort of not awful origins, like she was nobility, but she was sort of on the lower end of the scale, and she rose up, you know, through the ranks, and she got herself a really good husband because her literary, like, she was a literary, like, genius. And yeah, and the book also talks about all of this in relation to, you know, the political climate of the era, what sort of social changes were happening, the fact that the arts were being professionalised, and the difficulties in finding patronage so you could actually afford to do whatever your art was. So yeah, again, it's not a pick it up and go, oh yeah, this is, you know, super entertaining, but if you do enjoy academic reads and you're interested in medieval Japanese women, this is the one to read. So that's it from me for today. If you liked it, click the like button, which is probably over here actually. Subscribe below. If you want notifications about future videos, hit the little bell. If you have any like favourite sort of academic-y kind of reads, put it in the comments. Now, I love checking those things out, honestly. I have a bit of a preference for Korean history, Japanese history, Chinese history. So, Asian history we'll go with. Italy, because why not? And Islam as well, because I think that there's a lot of discussion about it, and I'd prefer to listen to academics rather than politicians. Anyway, so done all those things. Da-di-da-di-da. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again.